So one of these stories that popped up or over the course of the weekend was this thought that Sean McVay had the Rams won a Super Bowl, that Sean McVay would walk away, that he would look at a broadcasting opportunity. And so, the rumors started to fly out there. Now, Sean McVay was asked about this afterwards. This was courtesy of the NFL Network, and here's how the conversation went.
There were reports out there that Sean McVay, if he wins Super Bowl 56, could walk away at age 36 from coaching. No. Is that happening?
No. I'm so happy for this team right now. I'm so happy to be associated with it. We're going to enjoy tonight.
All right, so there's Sean McVay's response. Now, it's interesting, and I'll just say this. Brady, you had told me about this weeks ago, that there was this conversation that was happening, that it was a possibility, and then all of a sudden some of the other outlets started to report it over the weekend, and then there was some great feedback from people that maybe didn't have the sourcing, who were a little bit bitter about not having that sourcing.
It's the why that matters, right? Especially if you're a local journalist or media member in the LA market and you don't have an inside scoop. The why is really what matters. Why would he want to leave the Rams and go into it? That's the really journalistic part. So
yeah, it's very, very important stuff.
Right.
So this one, we talked about the Aaron Donald. Feels like maybe he's looking for a pay raise. If that's the case, because all of his credentials.
So McVay's doing the same thing.
Ooh, I mean,
so everybody's using the same tactic to get what they want.
Here's what I'll say: is leverage is leverage.
It is.
So you have to exercise it when you have it. Because, one, him getting paid, let's say, $20 million a year, all right, which would put him up there next to Bill Belichick, reportedly, maybe Pete Carroll. I'm not exactly sure. Some of the numbers are fuzzy, but the truth is, for your organization, this is a twofold conversation. Paying your coach does not impact your salary cap in any way. So if you feel like you've got a genius as your head coach, why wouldn't you? He's never had a losing season. He's been to, 2 Super Bowls in 5 years. He's won one now. I mean, why wouldn't you pay the guy top dollar to keep him? He's so valued, or at least viewed as being that valued amongst the league, that you only have to bump into him at some point in time in Los Angeles, and you can go interview for a head coaching job.
Yeah.
I mean, Kevin O'Connell, their OC, will now become the next head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. Cliff Kingsbury, by association, right, became the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. Zach Taylor was the quarterback coach, became the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, it goes on and on. So I sit here and just say to myself, yeah, you pay him whatever you need to keep him, to retain him. But those, part of the reason why it came out is he's young. He's the youngest head coach to ever win a Super Bowl in NFL history. He's getting married this summer. I think the way he coaches, the way he works, he'll be burnt out by the time he gets to 50, 60. And if you could go to a broadcast booth where you've got less stress involved, you're being compensated in a similar light, and you can go focus on still the game of football, but in a different way, a la what John Gruden did, which I think McVay would be a home run, grand slam for any network. But if you could go do that, maybe it makes sense for him. He could do it for 10 years, and he'd still be viewed as a young coach in the NFL at 46 years old, and he's already won a Super Bowl and been to 2. It's not like his reputation would be tarnished in any way.
Romo makes $17.5 million a year. If you're McVay and a network calls you offering you 18,
I mean, it's just good to have. It's good to have options.
10 years. 18 million or north of that. How do you say no
100%.
to, by the way, there's no offsets with some of these TV contracts. So when you say guaranteed money, it's guaranteed money.
They got to pay you. They don't.
And I would imagine maybe Stan Kroenke would sign up Sean McVay to a lifetime contract or a 10-year deal, right? I'm sure he would look at it, but I mean that would be my counter. Is like, look, if this network's going to pay me for a 10-year contract, 18 million, 20 million, you got to come match that for me to do this for the next decade.
Oof. I mean, like you said, leverage is leverage. I mean, if that's, get it the way you can get it. I don't know. I think if I'm McVay, and I just delivered this town a Super Bowl. Your value is definitely high. If I'm Kroenke, I'm looking at the value that he's brought to the situation. I mean, imagine everything that you brought up earlier in terms of him having to pay out what he's had to pay out to be where they are right now. What would be the best case scenario if you're the ownership and the people that are running the Los Angeles Rams? It would be what just took place last night.
Right.
And so to me, the value you have to say in the largest media market, the largest funded market for media in the country, your home team just delivered a win in the stadium. That alone, you got to start. If I'm the decision makers up front, you got to start thinking about what is the value of that. And what is the reward that is kind of, I don't know, that you balance out with what because you got to believe the amount of money that they probably generated by doing what they've done versus what they would have generated if the Rams didn't succeed the way that they did is probably vastly, vastly very different. And that has to be taken into consideration.
This doesn't feel like it's a dynasty, right? Like this
No,
feels
it
like they
doesn't
got
feel like a
one.
dynasty.
Like had Cincinnati won, or like when Kansas City got the first one, it was like, okay, this could be the first of many based on how they're built, their youth, and all that. This feels like, look, they got a bunch of guys who are coming in.
It doesn't feel like not a dynasty though, because you got the best player in all of football on your team. And you have weapons. And again, you'll probably get Woods back next year. Obviously, it's a sad situation for OBJ, but you get an offseason to try to figure out how to get that production out of it. They're a well-built team.
Yeah.
They're a well-built team, but like Brady said, they just have to be able to get with some of these contracts that are coming up.
So maybe if there was a time to leave, if he was going to leave, if Sean McVay was going to entertain it, it would be now, based on where they're at and what the future looks like, and his demand is never going to be higher.
And by the way,
unless he does it again,
right?
Yeah,
which it would be hard to think. I mean, you got to figure out Von Miller. If Donald retires, that hurts tremendously. Beckham, we don't know the severity of the knee injury, but given the timing of it, that'll impact next season. You look at guys like Austin Corbett, Brian Allen, No Boom, who I don't believe was a part of this one, but they've got a number of offensive linemen who are unrestricted free agents. And by the way, Whitworth is probably going to retire. We tend to forget, like, he did a hell of a job. Even the sack that Trey Hendrickson got early in the game, that wasn't on him. Akers knocked him off, with the way he really was running. It allowed Hendrickson to get that sack. So, but that's another player that's going to end up, either probably retiring and moving on. There's a lot of things that you got to make decisions on. And on top of that, they might lose some of the staff to Kevin O'Connell, bringing those guys with him to Minnesota. I kind of wonder. I mean, Raheem Morris would make the most sense to me to slide up into that head coaching spot if McVay left. I think they'd be in great hands. So there's no real reason to panic. It's just, can they figure out how to run this thing back and bring everyone back? Or does Sean McVay look at how things worked out for the Tampa Bay Bucks this year and go, yeah, we could try to run it back, but what happens if we don't? Is there still going to be that desire for me, which it probably would be, but a year from now, if we can't repeat or if we can't make it back to this point?
I mean, the fact that he's already that this is even out there, or the fact that it's even a possibility, and he even threw it out when they were asking him over the weekend. I think it might have been Friday, and his comment was along the lines of, absolutely no chance I'll be coaching as long as Bill Belichick does. There's no chance whatsoever. And he talked about seeing his dad and his relationship with his grandpa, and his grandpa was so involved with football and how much time it took away from him. Like, this does feel like, I think there's a real possibility he could walk away. And at 36, look, John Madden walked away at 42. He got a Super Bowl. He walked away. And he was still involved in football for the rest of his life and built a legendary career beyond that. Sean McVay could walk away at 36, get hired by ESPN to do Monday Night Football, and he could be in broadcasting as long as he wants. And then if an opportunity comes back up, he'll be hired on the spot, or at least be able to pick and choose where he wants to go in the NFL. I just think it makes too much sense.
And by the way, it doesn't exclude Stan Kroenke and the Los Angeles Rams from hiring him back.
Yeah.
We saw that with the Raiders.
Yep.
So you've got an example of that. Like people, well, why would you want to leave now to go do something else? Well, maybe it's a personal decision, and maybe professionally he can still come back to that, very similar to what Gruden did. And I would be willing to imagine he doesn't send out the same types of emails that John Gruden would used to send out.
I mean,
wow.
I'm throwing that out there.
And also, he did. He was part of that Washington staff, so he probably knows how to steer clear from that organization at this point. Like he's been there. He understands how that all works. So.